Are you a bunny? Are you a fluffy bunny? Test, 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 test. Did I just turn it off? test over that audio. Can we hear that? So I can't hear the game audio in the monitor speakers, but it looks like they can hear it. I'm not sure. Looks like my microphone's picking up the air conditioner pretty well. Room noise. I'm just going to assume they can hear the game audio. I'm going to switch over. It's really loud. It's really loud. All right, people will have to tell me if it's off. There we go. Nice. This one goes.
Dad?
Yo. Whoops.
Dad.
What's up?
Hey, do you want to play with...
What?
Let's play puppets.
Well, I can't play puppets. I'm going to be doing office hours for my students here in a few minutes. And so in just a few minutes, my students are going to show up and ask questions about their assignments. So I have to sit here and wait on them to come by with questions. So you're going to have to play with Mommy and get her to play with you, or play by yourself for a little bit. An elephant puppet? What's its name?
I don't know, but Stuffies don't have names.
They don't have names?
Yeah.
We give stuffies names. What are you talking about?
I'm sitting at the poopy.
A pipsqueak patty for the boy. I love Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy. It's pretty gross. The dirty bubble. Mm. Oh, so close. Feels like the first time. Feels like the very first time. It feels like the first time. Feels like the very first time. 40. Picking my nose on a live stream. Classy. I can help you out, Shepard.
Get me salami, Daddy.
Okie dokie, Shepard.
Bacon bun, please.
What?
Give me some.
Salami and bacon?
No. You have to make the bacon and then give me the salami.
You want legit bacon?
What?
Like we did yesterday? Bacon like we had yesterday?
Okay.
The big bacon?
You bacon?
Uh-huh. You want the huge bacon? Yeah.
I haven't eaten the whole thing of it instead of. Mommy, give me ice cream instead of that.
Mommy's taking her nap a little earlier than I thought she would.
She's taking a nap in the morning.
She's taking a nap in the morning nap.
Doopy doopy.
All right, Shepard. Here's you some salami. I will make you some bacon. Here's you some salami. And I'll make you some bacon. Bacon, 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 bacon. Bacon, 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 bacon. Shepard, you want any more of this? Smoothie? Look at that. It glows. That's how you know it's made for video games. I'm here. I'm back. The global organization outline example I posted, and we can always bring it up here just to show you. I posted a new page today that has the detailed assignment sheet that goes over exactly what's going on, as well as a final page. But if there's some confusion about that, I'm going to turn off the game and I'll show you guys. I'll show you guys what's going on. Whoa, drop my phone. Hope everybody's doing well today. Sorry I had to run downstairs. My little girl was like, "Can I have some bacon?" And I was like, "All right, I can make you some bacon." But then she requested some salami as a snack to wait on the bacon. My child really likes her cured meats. All right. Now let me quickly, I'll bring up Global Organization Outline, just so we're all clear. So this assignment sheet I posted this morning with some clarifications. And of course, we have all pages available now. But specifically, the thing to note here is that the global outline is all about, and I mentioned this in the very first page that I posted, the global outline is breaking down big concepts into digestible, focused paragraphs. So what I'm looking at here as I, through the pages, sort of develop the global organization outline, this is the finished product that I posted as part of the assignment sheet and as part of the final page. What we're looking at on the numbered tier here, 1, 2, 3, 4, introduction, contextualizing my argument, reason 1, reason 2, conclusion. As I said in the first page, those do not equate to paragraphs because they're more complicated concepts. Instead, we use the global organization outline to break those big concepts into smaller pieces. One way to do that is to focus our paragraphs around smaller pieces of information. This is what the Tallman frame is allowing us to organize and put all of our different ideas under these different headings. And so what we're looking at this point is this tier, A, B, C, D. Those are individual paragraphs. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 paragraphs, plus the conclusion makes 11. So my global organization outline would say that I would have a paragraph focused on delivering my main claim, my introductory paragraph. Then I would have a paragraph contextualizing my argument, providing a little bit of information about, again, are millennials the video game generation? I'm going to provide a paragraph up front saying, you know, I'm X numbers of years old. I was born during this time. And in my lifetime, this is what video games have meant to me and my generation and sort of pop culture. Under my first reason, I say, you know, the reason why I feel like my personality, my interests are really rooted in childhood is exemplified by my original NES, which is sort of emblematic of my whole quest. So I have a paragraph where I just talk about how I've had that NES since childhood. I'll talk about, you know, when I got it, when the NES first released, how long I've had it. And then I can move on to my next paragraph where I talk about having it throughout my life. Like I said, it's one of the few things that I've held on to my whole life. So I'm probably going to talk about all the things that I've had over the years and had to get rid of, whether because I needed to raise some money really quickly or because I was going through a minimalist period. Again, just some background information about me and why this previous point I've made is meaningful. Then I'll move on to my next point where I say, in fact, it's not just something I've held on to, it's something I still play. And so I realized that I would like to maybe briefly identify that for me, playing video games is relaxing, even if other people might find them frustrating or stressful or something like that. So I can address that condition of rebuttal while addressing the warrant and sort of supporting why I find it relaxing. Then I have a paragraph where I say, actually, I collect video games, and the NES sort of led that. So you can see the reason I put them in this order was to get to this point and say, well, the NES is actually emblematic of my collecting, right? And I play them. I play them frequently, et cetera, et cetera. And so you can sort of see that go on. Lexi's asking COR concession. COR is just my way of condensing the phrase conditions of rebuttal. That's all. The conditions of rebuttal, if you remember from the Tallman frame, is anytime your audience is attacking your reasons and grounds or attacking your warrants and backing. You kind of anticipate these things anytime you're making an argument so that you can better, sort of think, well, how would somebody respond to this? Would they be skeptical? Would they be argumentative? Would they be contrary? And so a condition of rebuttal is merely, what would my audience say to this? When I say a condition of rebuttal, concession, I'm saying, basically, I'm conceding that point. I'm like, yeah, you got a point. That makes sense. That makes sense that would be something that you would not agree with me on, that is a little bit of a flaw, but ultimately it's not something that's really going to change my mind. Page 4.2 discusses anticipating audience reactions and how to handle that condition of rebuttal. Matt asks, if I'm planning on breaking my reasons into 3 different sections and there's some overlap, should I try to break it and keep it separate or let it overlap? Overlap is fine as long as you're not retreading the same information. Instead, you could use that information that they have in common as a way to bridge. One of the things we'll talk about when we get to actually drafting here over the next 2 weeks is how to make all of your things feel connected and not just individual paragraphs that are loosely associated. So what you can actually do is let that overlap happen and then talk about it in one paragraph, and then in the next paragraph where you bring it up and say, earlier I talked about this, I want to expand on that a little bit and use that as a way to transition into the next idea. Zach, Lexi, Matt, did I clear up all of your questions so far? Please let me know. I can slow it down. And if this is one thing about online teaching that's really necessary is I need your questions as feedback. Your questions serve as feedback in that I can anticipate the next time I have to teach this online. Heaven forbid we're still doing this in the fall, but I'm not going to wait until the last minute. I need to be able to develop this material further to make sure that I'm as clear as possible. So I appreciate you guys participating in the live streams, not just for your own benefit, but also for mine. Yes, thank you. Okay, good, Zach. I'm glad that cleared that up. Yeah, I tried to explain that, but when it's just text and I'm not getting the feedback, you guys, it's easy to underestimate just how much a room full of students staring at you with blank expressions can do to help you figure out if you're explaining things properly. Vanshaz, hello. Thank you guys for participating. I'm going to make sure you guys all get extra credit for being here. Lexi, should there be a rebuttal or concession for each ground or warrant? No, not necessarily. There's a little bit of a judgment call in terms of what actually makes it from your Tallman frame to your outline. So in my Tallman frame, I tried to cover all my bases. What could anybody possibly say against this? When we finally get to the organization and start breaking down into paragraphs, there are a couple moments at the end of each page where I say, assess the paragraphs that you have. And that means in some ways cutting things that feel very minor, very nitpicky, or not likely to be something that is a common condition of rebuttal. So if it's kind of fringy or there's always going to be somebody that's kind of contrarian to everything that you say. So you would spend your entire argument saying, well, I believe this. I know they can do this. I know this. You don't want to spend all your time being stressed about addressing absolutely every single condition of rebuttal. Instead, you want to choose the ones that you feel like you can address that would add to your argument. Because ultimately, if your audience is sitting there thinking about a condition of rebuttal while you're writing or while they're reading, if you don't address the big things, then that could sort of lodge in the back of their brain. And that's what they're thinking of instead of listening to what you're writing about. So that's why you address the big things. The little things can fall by the wayside, or you can briefly address it in just a sentence or two at the end of a paragraph. Ultimately, it's a judgment call. And a lot of times it takes practice and experience to really make that judgment soundly every time. There's no real correct answer. It's just when I am grading your paper, I'm trying to think of it from the position of that reader, and I'll try to poke holes in it. I'll try to kind of poke holes in it and try to take that skeptical audience's standpoint. So if at any point, you're writing your outline and you're saying, you're thinking, is this condition of rebuttal worth bringing up? Is this something that I can address briefly? Is it something that needs its own paragraph? That's something you might want to reach out to me and ask those questions individually. I have no problem answering those questions and helping guide you. Lexi, I hope that answers your question. Matt, warrants and background info spread out in each reason. Is there a specific reason why you put them there? Or is it just depending on the reason? You clarify, is there a specific cadence for including rebuttals or warrants, or does it depend on the flow of your essay? Matt, that's a really good question. And flow is something that I was actually going to address next week, because it is a word that's frequently used in the criticism of writing. That is helpful to one degree, but from a writing teacher like me, the word flow is a little bit too vague. So instead, we want to think about flow as really just a forward progression of thought, that one paragraph naturally leads into the next one. And so what you want to do is think about different ways that your reader is experiencing those steps, right? And just have in mind that there should be a reason for why you're putting the paragraphs in the order that you're putting them. There isn't a specific cadence that you're trying to mimic. It really is a matter of judgment, thinking about what your reader needs when. Say, for instance, when I put the contextualizing my argument background information at the very beginning after my introduction, it's because I felt like that paragraph was important context for understanding everything else. And it might be something my reader needs to know. Like, for instance, my reader may not know my age, my background, my income bracket, those kinds of things, which do influence personality, which do influence expectations, those kinds of things. So I figured that was important for my reader to know right off the bat. It's also possible to address audience concerns right off the bat, because sometimes you have those arguments where you state your main claim and you take a step back and say, look, I know what you're thinking. Let's address the elephant in the room. Yes, I'm a man in my mid-30s who still plays video games and surrounds himself with toys. Like those kinds of things, it feels like it's important to get out there early on. And the same thing goes for, say, for instance, any other audience concern or addressing warrants, is you want to address them when they come up, because again, the audience may have that in the back of their mind when they're reading, and you don't necessarily want them to be thinking about that when they could be focusing on your argument. So at the global organization stage, especially when I'm evaluating this assignment, I'm looking for, are they thinking critically about the order these paragraphs are in? Rather than assessing whether or not I think it's the correct order. Because going from global outline to detailed outline to drafting, that order might change. So looking at my example outline here, this makes sense to me now, but once I start writing it, it might change and I might need to move some things around. And that's part of the writing process. And so feel free to sort of experiment. I wouldn't even mind if you gave me 2 outlines, say this order for this reason, this order for another reason, whatever helps you, as long as it's clear to me reading your outline, what each paragraph is going to be about, and that there is some semblance of organization in terms of, say, a chain where this leads to this, leads to this, like a step-by-step chain, or at the very least that you're building up to something. And then that's going to be okay. It's okay if you wait until the end of, say, your reason section of your paper to address audience concerns. That's fine. I chose to sort of integrate it in there in, say, reason 1 because they were small things I could address along the way. But you can see in reason 2, I left that are video games art condition of rebuttal for the very end because that felt like something that was going to be a big point, right? That was going to be a big point that I really need to elaborate on and maybe even need to bring in some secondary research to support it, to convince my audience beyond just my opinion, right? But I hope that helps, Matt. Feel free to experiment. I'm not going to judge the order of your paragraphs in terms of whether or not they're correct. I just want to see that there is some thought process behind it. Lexi, please don't worry about asking questions. Ask all the questions you want. Should there be a certain order of things, and should there be a warrant and background info? That I think I just covered that way in my long rambling explanation for Matt's question. Feel free to use the information that you feel like is important, right? That you feel like is necessary. I'm not counting them. I'm not looking for a quota or anything like that. Matt, should we mark where we would include outside research to help strengthen warrants or background? Yeah, absolutely. The more you do at this stage, including things like I could support this with this research or something like that. Anything that you can include at this stage means that you have less to do in the next stage. And so, some of you may not have that research yet or may not know where you need that yet, and that's okay. But if you already have in mind, a type of source you would like to use, making a note of that right now and saying this should go in this paragraph, that can only be beneficial. I'm glad I answered your question, Lexi. These are good. These are good questions. It's also showing me clearly that maybe next time, if we have to do this in the fall, more formalized lecture videos are going to be beneficial, right? I think sometimes just hearing it out loud, unfortunately, just time has really, really prevented me from getting that done. Because the written format, the written portion is so time consuming. And guys, I really did not anticipate not having childcare being so impactful on our ability to get things done. Right now, my daughter's sitting downstairs on the couch using my wife as like an armchair because she's asleep on the couch because she was up until 4 a.m. this morning getting slides and stuff ready for her students, and You know, when she's up all night, I have to go to bed so that I can get up and take care of Shepherd in the morning. It's a nightmare. It really is. It's a challenge. My Shepherd just yelled at me. She's awake now. She's awake now. I'm gonna mute my microphone so I can eat. Matt, yeah, I understand. And, you know, the topic itself, the assignment, the paper itself, it's new. I invented it for you guys for this situation. So I'm working out the kinks. It's there's a lot of experimentation going on. The subtext to that should be that I'm going to be pretty sympathetic when I'm grading. Because there's one thing about assessing student work from a teacher's point of view is I personally feel that a good teacher is assessing themselves when they're assessing their students' work. And if everybody's getting something off, that feels like a failing on my part. And so I can't judge my students harshly. So the best I can do is guide you through this and use that as a way to sort of adjust as we go on. And of course, my expectations have to be adjusted because I don't know what you guys are going through right now. I had a student email me last night saying he was having a hard time catching up because he's working with the fire department, you know, helping rescue situations. You know what I mean? Like when you're not at school and you're not in student mode, other things start to take over. That's the benefit of the college experience, is the reason why hundreds of years ago when people started the university thing, it's the same reason monks would cloister themselves away in monasteries so they could focus on their studies and their spiritual journeys. And so students at college, they're doing the same thing. They're cloistering themselves away from regular society. A college university functions like a military base, you know, where you have food, you have recreation, you have housing. It's that all there so that as little as possible can intrude upon the work at hand. And so when we're at home, I'll admit it's hard to focus. I'm sure you guys are experiencing that too. It is hard to focus. I have always been the type of person that works better in my office, for instance, than I do at home. Even though I could grade from home, I will sometimes go to my office on a Saturday to grade papers just because if I'm at home, you know, my wife or daughter might need something. I get distracted by that. I get distracted by housework. I get distracted by my toys. You know, I mean, I'm sure you guys are distracted by this right now. Look at this. Isn't that crazy? That's distracting. A light show. You want me to turn it off? It came with a remote. Look at this thing. This is ridiculous. I can hit the remote. Get a little different light shows. Look at that. What is the point? What is the point of this? It's hysterical. This is something that people do specifically for streaming, just so that people will be like, "Ooh, that computer looks really cool. I want one of that." This is a way of cyberpower PC advertising their own products. You're absolutely right, Matt. You know, the social aspect of a college campus, there are positive benefits as much as there are dangers when it comes to peer pressure. You know, and when you find yourself, you know, not knowing what to do, looking over at your roommate or your friends in the library and just mimicking what they're doing, it's beneficial. You know, orientation for freshmen, I think, fails students in a lot of ways, because it's orientation in a living sense, in a social sense. But I also feel, even when I was a student going through orientation, feeling like, man, this is really focusing a lot on school spirit and social aspects, and not helping me figure out how to be a college student, which is very different from being a high school student. And some of those things you pick up along the way, and sometimes you never get good at. I don't feel like I got good at studying until I was in grad school. I don't think I got good at writing and efficient at writing until I was in grad school. And I do think that's because in some ways the learning process wasn't taught. You were just expected to have it, which is a challenge since everybody's coming from different backgrounds. I mean, I came from a really poor school district. I think technically in my school district, we were considered the rich, snobby kids in the valley. But you know, it's all relative, right? I still only had like 700 people in my school. And so, you know, resources were thin. It's a different kind of school curriculum. My college experience was very fractured. I went to 1 year of local regional college, the University of Virginia at Wise. My first year of college, I did very poorly because I was not focused. I transferred to a community college after that. I went to one semester of that, and then I dropped out. And then it was a while later that I actually went back to college at New River Community College. Got my associate's degree, and then transferred to Tech after that. So I was a little bit older than my classmates, which is why I was kind of down on the orientation process, because I wasn't living on campus, and I'm kind of a introvert anyway. I wasn't going to go to parties or join clubs or anything like that. I just wanted to learn. I just wanted to know how to learn, because it was something that I was failing at. I mean, I figured it out, but it wasn't easy. Yilin, hi, welcome. Anybody have any other questions about the assignments? I'm glad to answer those questions. I really am. I'll turn back on our game here just to pass the time. But I enjoy hanging out with everybody. I did the calculation, looked at my calendar yesterday, and my family and I have been social distancing since March the 11th. We kind of got a little bit early on it because we were all sick. And March the 12th, my daughter, that was the first day my daughter stayed home from preschool because she had the flu. And so we've been social distancing a little bit longer than others, just because we kind of had to. Because, you know, that's what you do when you sit. You know, you don't want people coming over. You don't go out and do stuff, you know, generally speaking. Especially when little kids involved. So we are on day 38. Day 38. 38 of isolation. I took a little bit of a risk yesterday to help out a local business. I communicated with the proprietor of Super Games Station down in Radford, a friend of mine. I love that business. I want him to succeed. I wanted to buy him some groceries, so I took a little bit of my stimulus money to help him out, and I bought some games. I went down there and did a little bit of a contactless pickup. The storefront is closed. I just sort of communicated with him on Facebook, and he opened up a little bit just for me, so that I could buy some stuff off of him. I bought a Super Nintendo, as well as a Skarmory. I want a Skarmory. Oh no, I killed it. Damn it. I wanted to catch that and use it. But I bought a Super Nintendo and some games, and I also bought a Dreamcast and some games. And that actually makes it to where I now have every single console I've ever had in my childhood growing up. I have them all again because I had to, sell them off or get rid of them in order to afford the next one. So, I bought a Dreamcast day one back in 1998. I bought it day one. I saved up my allowance for that thing. And then, eventually I had to sell it. I probably used it to buy a Xbox 360 or something like that. I don't remember. I had to sell it eventually. But I got it back. So now I can access a lot more games. Pretty excited about that. Von Shaw's still a bit confused about the second part where we contextualize my argument. That is actually not something that is necessary in everybody's argument. So in the Tallman frame, there is a spot under grounds where I indicate that you could put information that you feel like would be helpful background information for your reader to understand what you're talking about. And when I was doing my organization and thinking about, the that third page that I just released about an hour ago, so you might want to go read that. When I was thinking about the rhetorical function of my paragraphs, I felt like that would make more sense to put it up front. And since it wasn't necessarily supporting my first reason, I just gave it its own section. It's just one paragraph, probably. But I felt like it was important to up front say, before we get to anything else, let me give you a little bit of background on me, my age, my background, where I come from, my attitudes, those kinds of things. That might be important. It might be important for my reader to understand the other points. And so that's why I put it up front. It's just a matter of, moving things around. When does it make sense? Addressing things right after your thesis statement are really those sort of elephant in the room kind of moments, saying, look, I know what you're thinking. Let's clear this up before we get up, just so they're not thinking about that while they're reading the rest of your paper. You also ask if each reason we present has to be related to an object, or does it have to be, or does each reason... No, I use the object thing as a way to brainstorm, and we want to use the objects as a way of saying, look, this is why someone coming into my room is going to think this about me, because ultimately that's the point of the paper, right? If they come into my room, what are they going to think about me? So the objects are sort of our touchstones. But that's something that is going to depend. So for instance, in my example, I'm really focusing on that NES, just that one object, because I feel like it's emblematic of a lot of other things. Now, when I ultimately write my paper, I might want to integrate some other things in there to, identify, other nostalgia-based things that I was into as a kid, like Dungeons and Dragons, like comic books, those kinds of things. But there's no real, requisite way to approach it in that way. And each reason doesn't necessarily need to have a condition of rebuttal. The conditions of rebuttal are there when you want to address something that you feel like is going to be really important for your reader to be on board with, right? So if they're so far apart between you and, say, what maybe they think about certain things, it might take some clarification, and say, look, I know what you're thinking. Like in my example I gave earlier, I know what you're thinking. I'm a man in his mid-30s who still plays video games and surrounds himself with toys. Does that seem pathetic? Does that make me seem like a massive nerd who, never got over his childhood? But that's an opportunity, I think, for me to add to my argument, to say, no, I'm a perfectly well-adjusted adult dude with a career, with a family, with, all this other stuff. And it's not about that, it's just about what, if Marie Kondo has taught us anything, the phrase, what sparks joy. And so there's just these negative sort of cultural connotations attached to some of the things that I'm into. But I think that's an opportunity to not only say, no, you're wrong, but also to add to my argument. So that's when you really want to bring in those conditions of rebuttal. If it's a condition of rebuttal that you feel like it's nitpicky or just somebody on the fringe, because there's always going to be somebody that's contrary to everything you say, you don't have to address everything. So it's really a judgment call. And if you ever want to say, send me an email and say, is this a condition of rebuttal that needs to be addressed? That's fine. You also may get to the next step in the outlining process and realize you don't have as much to say. And so you can, minimize it or cut it all together. Vanshaz, I hope that answers your question. Sierra, hi. I hope things are going well for you too. I'm glad you enjoyed the readings. It's something this week's in children's literature, the readings are something that I certainly would prefer that subject to be talked about in person, because in text, I don't know if it came off as sort of pointed, like I want it to be something that's like, I'm posing questions, not trying to tell you how to feel, not to tell you what is right, what is wrong, what is good for children, what is bad for children. I don't want that. And in text form, that's a little bit more challenging. And since I haven't gotten to do any video recording lectures for those notes, I was hoping that it didn't rub people the wrong way. Because, if you're open to that kind of interpretation, then, it will feel eye-opening and important. But if you're a little bit resistant, I don't want it to come across as preachy. Because, my daughter loves the Cat in the Hat, problematic potential aside. My daughter loves Cat in the Hat, and I love Dr. Seuss. I love all those books that we read. Babar maybe to a lesser extent. I do think Babar is, from my eyes, the one that has aged the worst. Erythra Matil's a little heavy for a 4-year-old, which is why in the discussion board I'm like, is this even for children? Who is this for? I don't know. What is the point of this book? It won awards, naturally. It impresses other adults, but I'm not 100% sure who that book is for. It's very fascinating from a technical side, and of course the subject matter is very fascinating. But I don't know. Sierra, yeah. I'm glad you felt that way. I didn't want it to come off as preachy or pushy. I don't want that. I wish we could have real class, just in general. I miss you guys. I'm kind of an introverted homebody, so staying at home, somebody telling me, no, you have to stay home, that's not really that big of a deal to me, to be honest. But I do miss interacting with people other than my family. I love my family, but you need. We're running out of things to talk about. My wife just yelled, "I heard that." We're running out of things to talk about. No, I'm just kidding. It's actually been not that bad. It's not that bad. We have typical 4-year-old issues. But in some ways, she's in a better place than she was in preschool, just because she's not stressed out by having tons of kids running around yelling at her. Although I did joke to a friend the other day that after the isolation period, I'm going to need some isolation from all this isolation. Nah, I'm going to keep those. I like those. Stop learning, meditate. Yeah. I hope you guys are getting along with your family. It's tough, especially for those of you who maybe just moved out, I can't imagine my first year students getting that first taste of freedom and then having to go back home. Oh, God, that's got to be rough. I haven't lived with my parents since I was 16. And so I know, I think living with my parents, I love my parents. I see my parents as frequently as I can, and I talk to them 4 or 5 times a week each. They're divorced, so I have to talk to them separately. And I talk to them frequently, but I could not imagine being stuck inside with either of them for an extended period of time. Maybe my mom, mostly because my mom would be distracted by my daughter. That might actually be awesome. Maybe I could convince her to move in with us, just so I could get a break. Oh, there's that taste. Yeah, when I was 16, I would say I moved out, but I actually didn't move out. I was living mainly with my mom at the time in Southwest Virginia, going to school, high school in Big Stone Gap, Virginia. And right before my senior year, my stepfather got a job in Southern Ohio, and he was like he worked on strip jobs and construction projects, and he was a welder. And so, he had steady work in the area for years, but it was starting to dry up in the early 2000s. And so he found a job in Southern Ohio, in like rural Southern Ohio, like 40 minutes outside of Cincinnati. And they were like, "We gotta move." And I was like, "Fuck no, I ain't." I said, "I'll sleep in my car before I switch schools right before my senior year. There's no chance." I was 16. I was like, "Screw that." So the summer before my senior year of high school, my mom was actually splitting time, mainly living in Southern Ohio with my stepdad, but she came down that summer in the house. The lease on our house in Big Stone Gap was still going on. I stayed in that house pretty much by myself for like 4 months, finishing up my junior year of high school, finishing up my summer sort of stuff, just hanging out. My mom came down, once every 10, 15 days. Talked to her every day. They bought me groceries. I don't know. Does that sound sketchy to everybody? It sounds weird when I say it out loud. At the time, I thought it was awesome. And then when that lease ran out, I actually luckily had a aunt and uncle I could move in with in town. And my mom let me stay. So that was 2002. 2002, I stopped living with my mom. Something that she is not happy about. Oh man, we're going on 20 years. I didn't pay any bills, but I was pretty autonomous. That's probably gross. Yeah, you learn how to take care of yourself really quick when you live on your own. I've always been a pretty independent person. But I'm very thankful that my mom sort of went against her best instincts at the time to let me make that decision on my own. My mom is far more progressive and open-minded than one would expect from somebody who grew up in hell for certain Kentucky. I kid you not. That is where my mom grew up. Where my papa is from. Hell for certain. One word. Hell for certain. Hell for certain Kentucky. I don't even know. That might be it might not be unincorporated. So I'm not sure that it's something that you could Google. I've been there. But say, I was just talking to my mom about this the other day. Now, she had running water, but her uncle, who lived also in Hell for Certain, refused it. It was available, but refused it. Did not want running water. They didn't want to pay for something they could get out of the creek. They didn't want to pay for electricity when they had natural sunlight. That was, man, them old school hill folk, brother. I'll give you a funny story, an example of this. My dad knows a lot of old timers. Where I grew up in Kentucky is Hazard, Kentucky, which is the next county over in Perry County. And my dad knows a bunch of old timers in the area. And there's this one fella that lives way out in the boonies. And he got sick enough to where he actually had to go to the hospital. And his daughters, who were grown and moved out and lived in civilized areas, had gotten him to go to the hospital. And so he was hospitalized for a little while. And they said, let's surprise him. Let's surprise him. Bring him into the 20th century. Let's surprise him with an indoor bathroom. And so he was in the hospital long enough for them to pay for and have done a remodel on his house. Now, they put in a septic tank. You know, he's too far out there for like connecting the sewer system or anything like that. But they put in a septic tank. They put in a bathroom. They remodeled his house. You know, carved out a little bit of space and like a hallway closet to turn it into a bathroom. And when he came back out of the hospital, he was furious. He was furious that his daughters would do that. Not because he was like, no, I can do it on my own. I don't need you to help me. But because he said, and I quote, I don't want to shit and eat under the same roof. Can you imagine? I don't want to shit and eat under the same roof. I can't imagine. Oh, man. I wonder if that dude's still around. I hope he's still alive. That's an old timer. I don't want to shit and eat in the same roof. It makes a sort of amount of sense. You know, my toilet, I have a toilet literally just in a back bathroom that's just on the other side of a wall from my stove. I mean, it makes a weird kind of sense, you know? It's a different kind of sense. I do not believe the logos of the argument would make much difference to that guy. Hell for Certain, Kentucky. My papa still lives down there. I hope he's alive. I don't like him very much, but I hope he's all right. He had a stroke a few weeks ago. I don't talk to him, but I don't want him dead. You know? I'm sure we all have family like that. Oh, man. My mom's dad. My dad's dad. Joe Baker. I'm hoping he's staying home, too. He's got black lung. Working in the coal mines. You know what's funny is I spent most of my life thinking the reason that he was retired and on disability was because of the black lung. And that it got so bad he couldn't go down to the mines anymore. But my dad told me a few years ago that actually the reason why is because he was injured in an explosion. And this was in the 80s, right? He was injured in a mine explosion, and a 2x4 flew and pierced his thigh. A 2x4 went through his leg. And to hear my dad tell it, he said, you know, when he was injured, he went up to the foreman and he's like, Lord, I gotta go home. I gotta go to the doctor. My leg's burnt. They've burnt my leg. Walked to the foreman and said, Lord, I've burnt my leg. hurt my leg. Oh man, I always thought he walked funny because he was just trying to be like Clint Eastwood. Lord, I hurt my leg. Maybe that can be my streamer identity, guys. Hillbilly streamer. Knows how to work computers. My daughter's yelling at me. What's up?
Sister, you can't see me when I'm sneaking up.
Okay, I'll pretend like I can't see you if you're sneaking up on me. Hopefully when I talk about Kentucky, people aren't getting a wrong idea. I've been criticized before about painting a negative view of Appalachia. I don't know what to tell them. It's my life, man. I lived it. I'm from the Wild West. I'm from the Wild West. It's crazy down there. It's like half modern normal city, half Dukes of Hazzard. It's crazy. It's wild. Did you sneak up here? Did you sneak up here? Yes, you're so cute.
I said this time you can't see
I can't
me
see
when
you? Okay.
I sneak up.
I don't want to paint a negative light. I mean, if I'm being honest, I hate Hazard, Kentucky. I hated it there. I'm glad I moved out. I'm glad I don't have to raise a kid there, to be honest. The economy sucks. There's drug problems everywhere. Air quality's terrible. Cancer rates are high.
This mine.
I mean, you don't necessarily choose to go somewhere like that or to be from somewhere like that. But it's part of who you are, you know? It's part of who you are.
Dad, I think Sky had your my
You got your headphones? Do you want to listen to the game? I got my game playing on that. Whew, I'm still hungry, guys. That bacon is not going to tide me over until... Who's here? I got 3 viewers. Who's here still? Who's listening to me ramble about Hazard, Kentucky? What's up?
4 computers.
We have 4 computers? That's a lot of computers. Wow. Wow. I haven't been to Hazard in a long time. Probably, well, I went down there when we first moved back to Virginia from Kansas. Lord, that was about 6 years ago. My dad usually comes and visits us. That's mostly because it's just easier for him to come here, you know? He's by himself. Doesn't have a kid. He can afford it. Plus, my wife hates it there. My wife hates it. I took her there once, and she hated it. Stressed her out. Depressed her. We drove from Blacksburg to go visit my dad down there, and we took a detour to go visit my other hometown, Big Stone Gap, Virginia, which is where I grew up and went to high school and stuff. Hold on one second. What, Shepard? You want me to wear the headphones? Like this?
Yeah.
Yeah? You like it?
Thank you. It's not on your ears.
No, it is on my ears. It's just my hat's there. The hat makes it, ironically, less sweaty. Headphones make me sweaty. Most things make me sweaty. I'm kind of a sweaty guy.
Pecky?
What?
Pecky?
Pecky?
Yeah?
Yeah? Did you eat your bacon? I ate my bacon. It was good.
I ate My bacon. Hey, my freaking damn bacon.
Frickin' damn bacon. We got to work on your language.
The freaking damn bacon.
This is what happens when you're stuck inside with mommy all the time. Mommy's potty mouth.
What?
Yeah, mommy's got a potty mouth.
What?
You're saying bad words. Oh, I forgot I was wanting to catch one of those. I just killed it. Dang. Oh, I can get it. I can get it. Back. Here we go. Here we go. Ultra Ball.
This is what you're talking about, the glass.
Mm-hmm. Talking to my class.
The glass.
Yeah, I was talking to my class.
No, the glass
Just
on
my
your
glass.
chair.
Oh, this? That's not glass. That's plastic. It's just made to look like that. This is glass. That's glass. So you want to be careful.
Can you turn this out?
I don't know. Don't. I want to keep it there. Daddy needs to get a better chair. Better support. Get one of those cool gamer chairs you see on the internet. So that I can have a higher back. Whew. This is not my favorite chair. What was I talking about? Oh yeah, my wife going to Hazard. So we drove through Big Stone Gap, which is where I went to high school. That's where my mom moved with my stepdad and me and my half sister. I think it was like fifth grade. So we drove through Big Stone Gap, and my wife was like, "Oh, this is so sad." And I mean, you know, it's a small, depressed,
Dad,
cold town.
can you give me a shady spot?
A shady spot.
There's
You're in a
not
shady spot.
enough shade.
There's not enough shade.
There's light coming through.
Oh. Do you want to go get like a blanket to bring over, and you can make a little tent? You get a blanket? Why don't you go grab a blanket? Bring one over. And she was like, "Oh, this is sad." And I was like, "Well, just you hold on." And then she described going from Big Stone Gap to Hazard like entering into Mordor. She had never seen like the coal chutes going over the streets and stuff. She was like, "Why? I didn't know they'd have that close to the road." I was like, "That's why the road's here." Hazard's pretty rough. Hazard's pretty rough. I'm not gonna lie. Air quality's bad. Water quality's bad. Like, my wife has really sensitive skin and allergies, and so just the coal dust being in the air made her sort of get rashy just being there. She was allergic to Hazard. So every time I went back, I went by myself. I haven't been back since my daughter was born.
There, I've got a blanket.
You got a blanket? All right, let's make a tent. Somebody help me name this bird. What should I name this bird? It's a big metal bird. Big robot bird.
Owl the fire robot bird.
Owl the Fire Robot Bird. That's a really good name.
Yeah.
That's a really good name. All right,
Yeah.
climb under there, and then I will create a tent for you. A shady spot. Let's get this blanket. Yeah. All right, now I'm going to sit this here to hold the blanket. Is that good?
Yeah.
Yeah, you like that?
Yeah.
All right. What am I gonna name this bird? What am I naming this? You said owl.
Fire bird. Fire the robot bird.
Fire the robot bird.
Yeah.
All right, good. Owl. Fire robot bird.
What?
Owl the fire robot bird. Now be careful, don't pull on this because it might pull this and then smack you in the head. I don't want that. All right,
Well,
Alpha.
just catch it.
Well, okay, but just be careful anyway. I really wanted to be Pokemon today. I got this brand new gaming PC, and I'm still playing this emulated Game Boy game for 20 years ago. This is new. This is my stimulus check right here. We are privileged and fortunate that this pandemic has not affected our paychecks, and so use it like any middle class white folk. Paid some debts, bought some shit we don't need. I did need a new computer at home. My work laptop is pretty underpowered, and I want to start learning how to do video editing. Not just for something like streaming, but to create classroom stuff. I teach online classes, and of course, we're already being told to prepare for the fall as if there may be a need to go online again. They haven't made that decision yet, and they are not likely to make that decision until the summer. But we are being told to prepare for that possibility. And I'd like to learn this summer. I'm not teaching summer classes this summer, so I could use the summer to learn how video editing works. I can maybe produce some more visually dynamic lectures that aren't just me talking at a camera. You okay? Did you bump your head? You're bumping the head all the time. You all right?
Dad, watch out where the chair.
You want me to watch out? Am I the one that's in the way?
Yeah.
I was here first. But I would like to be able to make visually engaging lectures. I think it would be beneficial for my students. I think it'd be beneficial for my job.
Dad, there's
Yeah.
more poop on Tria's butt.
Tree has poop on her butt?
Yeah.
You better get a wet wipe and wipe her butt.
No, I don't want to do it.
You don't want to wipe her butt? We
You
have
want
a,
to
we have
wipe
a
her
fat
butt.
cat that has a challenging time wiping her own butt. It's good. You know why? She's so fat she can't lick her own butt. Do you know that's how cats clean their butt? They lick poop off their butt.
Ew!
I know, it's so gross. Ew. Come over here and stand. Come over here and stand so you can see you in the camera. So cats lick their own butts. Shepherd, could you lick your own butt?
No.
You can't lick your own butt?
No. I can't
That's probably
lick
a
my
good
own
thing.
butt.
You can't lick your own butt?
Yeah, I
Huh.
pee. My
What did
butt pees out pee.
What are they even teaching you at school if they're not teaching you how to lick your own butt? Is this why I still have to help you wipe when you go to the potty? Because you can't lick your own butt? Oh, man. I'm just kidding. People don't lick their own butts. People don't lick their own butts. So cats and dogs do. You just murdered somebody's eardrums right now. That is a powerful microphone. You are gonna kill somebody.
Mom, Dad.
Yeah.
She has poop on her butt.
Well, you better help her out. She can't get it. She's got a fat belly. She can't.
You
can't
have
get
to.
it.
You have to.
I have to.
Yeah.
Why don't you do it?
I don't want to.
You don't want to. Well, let's check her. Let's check her.
I saw poop on her
All right.
butt.
I'll be right back. I'll be right back.
I'll go with you.
Let's check her out. Tria, can I check your butt? Can I check your butt?
saw poop on her butt.
Hey. Hey
I saw
there, sweetie.
poop on her butt.
Hey there, sweetie.
There's wipes right there.
Go on. Mommy just hanging out on the couch.
Yep, I'm making myself wake up.
You already had your nap, huh?
Well, it wasn't a restful
Hold on, Tria. Tria. Okay, I think I got it. She's so mad at me. Did you hear her give me that lip? Did you hear her give me that lip?
Yeah.
She was like, "Don't do that. Meow, don't do that. Don't wipe my butt."
Yeah, I did get the
All right,
rest of
I super gotta wash my hands now.
There's still poop on her butt.
No, there isn't. Oh, that's just her butt hair. Her butt hair is just dark. I'm sorry, Tria. Did that upset you? Did I squish you? Trying to put her in a...
And there's still more poop on Tria's butt.
No, that's not poop. That's just her fur.
No, I saw poop.
I got the poop. I got the poop.
No, there's poop sprinkles on her butt.
Poop sprinkles.
Poop
Poop pickles. Why don't you and Mommy chase her down then?
Oh, I'm not chasing her. I don't want to talk.
I think she's just playing. Missed out on the bacon, Mommy. What?
No, it doesn't, right?
Oh, did you ate the rest of hers? You sure? Where's my bacon? Because guess what? I'm at home. I can eat bacon whenever I want. Am I right? Also, can we put in a supplementary grocery order
Okay.
with bacon and shrimp? And beer. Give me a 6-pack of food.
Is that something you're allowed to look at?
I don't. If not, I'll go out and get it because I think that's where we are right now.
You're at that point.
I'm at that point in isolation. I wanna stream with my big Stein. Am I right? We still got some streamers. Anybody got any questions left over? I'm literally just hanging out at this point.
Watch out.
I gotta get all my Pokemon up to level 40 in order to beat this thing. You gonna get under your tent? As soon as my webcam comes in, I'm using my laptop right now instead of this computer because my laptop has a built-in webcam. So I don't have an external webcam to use with my new computer. I have one on its way, but a lot of shipping from online retailers is taking a little bit longer. So I got my computer on Wednesday. I'm not going to get my speakers until next Thursday, and I think my camera is coming this week, but we're not sure.
And my sticky Cheeto gloves.
Because the camera with the webcam, the department bought for us, so we just got
Cheeto gloves.
I didn't get a tracking number. Cheeto gloves and your sticky gloves. She wants some grip gloves so she can work out with mommy.
No. I'm
And
gonna
swing.
stick on to it because they're super sticky.
They're so sticky.
And you can't swing on it.
Yeah, I can't because I'm too big.
Yeah,
We got her some gymnastics.
I can't because it's
She has some gymnastics,
My gloves are super
like
sticky.
a foam wedge and a little bar to hang on and stuff. It's in our garage. We had to get that because it's really challenging to burn off a 4-year-old's energy when you're stuck inside and can't take them to a park. They can't go play with their friends. We're going crazy trying to just entertain her, to keep her from going crazy. And she's at that age where she'll just go, I'm bored. Oh man, who's in the chat? Anybody watching? It says I got 2 concurrent viewers. If you guys don't have any more questions, I may shut the stream off pretty soon and go play Final Fantasy. Got Final Fantasy VII Remake. It's so good. It's so good. I know I just bought a Dreamcast, but no more PP. Oh Oh, let's get Earthquake to 440 and then we'll call it a time. I'll finish this game off stream. Next time I stream, once my webcam gets here, we'll play some modern games. Like actual games that people play nowadays. I'm trying to get into the beta of Valorant, which is an Overwatch style loot shooter, free-to-play loot shooter from Riot Games. I'm trying to get into the beta on that. Some of my friends are playing that. I'm also downloading Call of Duty Warzone. I'm not very good at shooters, but that's what everybody's playing right now. Waterstone, yes. Yes. Finally. Finally. I'm getting really attached to this team, actually. I may create this team and retrain it in Sword and Shield. Never really used a Poliwrath. Look at that. Look at that bad boy. Yes. Now I just gotta wait on that Firestone. Alright. That feels like a good place to stop. All right, let me, everybody who stopped by and chatted, we'll, wait, did I just save? This is like a light switch OCD. I used to have light switch OCD where I'd leave the house and forget, did I lock the door? Did I do that? I worked through that. I haven't worked through it with saving yet. I want to write down names to give some extra credit. And extra credit, it's just, our grade is just, it's points based. So your final grade is just whatever percentage of points you achieved through the course of the semester. But the bonus points are just added on top of that, so they can make up for lost points and checkpoint assignments, that kind of stuff. So, let's see, Matt, getting another point. Sierra, my 524 representative, Vanchaz. Yulin popped in. Didn't have a question, but hung out. It's all right. Lexi. Let me check the chat. Zach. Okay. All right. We're going to call it a day. I'll stream again short in the near future. Especially once we get towards the end of the semester and people are working on those final papers and they're going to have a lot more questions. So just get to work, all right? You guys take it easy, stay healthy, and we will we'll see you when we see you.